What is up? It's a Figure Hunter, and today is part 3 in a 4-part series for the Amazfit Balance set of reviews. As I've shared in other videos, I did a massive comprehensive review looking at it as a watch, looking at the quality of the value of the wellness metrics, quality of the value of the workout metrics, and it just turned out to be this huge review video. So I decided to break it out in chunks and then couple it with a simple summary of sort of the high points. So that's the 4th video. This is the 3rd video in which we're going to look at the quality of the workout analysis and the training load analysis and the recovery time analysis. So we're going to look at how it looks just on the watch and how it looks, in the metrics, but are those metrics worthwhile recommendations or analysis features when compared especially to the industry leader right now of Garmin. So if you like this review, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more. I try to test devices for just purely high intensity training, but always only test devices. It has to have training analysis features and wellness recovery features. I try to not just tell you what one of these features might be on a watch that I'm reviewing, but compare it to other industry leaders to see if it's of value. In all my videos, there's sort of no frills. I have to focus my time on just content instead of editing. So looking at this, we're going to look at this watch just in simple, like just how it shows you information on the watch and in the app. But then we're going to start to compare it to Garmin. We're going to look at a series of workouts, different workout types, and how it gave an analysis for the impact on your physiological makeup, your body, your training, your fitness compared to what Garmin would have given you. And then we're going to look at it more broadly just to see if it's giving just generally good recommendations for your training at large and your recovery at large. And then we'll talk about it in summary. So with that, let's dive in. All right, so looking at the basic functions for workouts themselves, obviously I have it as a quick jump, so you can go into the workouts. You have like 800,000, watches that have like 800,000 options, but don't have specificity with each option relative to the sport that you're picking. It's kind of worthless. It just sort of gives you an identification at least, so you know how many times you did elliptical versus how many times you did yoga maybe in a month's time. But the information that you get like in the workout itself is, it's all basic stuff. There's nothing, too revolutionary. It works great. That's great. The assistant, it does have a voice, which I don't like. But either way, if you want to look at what the workout, results look like, your last workout, so you can see at the end of the workout, you get this training effect. You guys, your training load down below. You get your aerobic training effect, your anaerobic. We're going to talk about whether those are worthwhile numbers or not. And you get like pages of stats. This is just all repeated what you would get in the app, but it's pretty. It all functions. It all works well. And, it's great. That it honestly really is great. And you have your workout status. So you have your training load over time. So that changes every day. It's based on a rolling chronic average versus the recent last 7 days relative to your the indicators relative to your longer term averages of training load your body's been under, your VO2 max. The VO2 max is always low with what I have seen. It has a different gauge. Maybe it's probably in the same sort of basic places on my Garmin, but my Garmin's 46. And then recovery time. This always tracks your recovery time based on the intensity of the workout. I think it's probably mostly on the aerobic training effect. And we're going to look at how it relates to another major competitor with Garmin with each of these stats, but you get these pieces of information. Now, let's look at how it evaluates the information to give you recommendations and if it's worthwhile. So all these things are neat, but not if they don't provide genuine value or unreliable information. All right, so here's a standard CrossFit type workout, or CrossFit. You have obviously higher intensity, repeating rounds with a prolonged rest in the first part. And then I did some interval running in the back half. We did some lifting accessory work in the middle there. But you can see it was like high fluctuation and high level heart rate across different parts. So this is the breakdown you would get from a traditional CrossFit class and the training effect. So aerobic and anaerobic. Almost all devices, when they see heart rate touching in zone 5, are going to over categorize the anaerobic versus what I believe should be. But your aerobic 3.6, that's high output in that red zone, sort of really producing good results. And then if you go into the detailed data, you'll scan down, you'll see the current workload 185. So that's the training load for this particular workout. So remember these numbers: 3.6 aerobic training effect, 3.2, and training load of 185. So we go into Garmin. You see a lot similar things. Obviously, it's just a different presentation of the same chest, the heart rate monitor, heart rate graph. Training effect: 3.1 aerobic, 1.8 anaerobic. So that is what I would feel is, actually more accurate, because it was longer bouts of high heart rate, which an anaerobic can't be sustained for a 5-minute cycle necessarily. But you can see, the very similar, like, what is the output from Garmin? And if you go into their detailed tab, you can look in the middle here under training effect, the aerobic and anaerobic, but you see the exercise loads, 111. So if you were to compare these two just in their base data, bottom 3.6, 3.2, 185 on the training load, here 3.1, 1.8, 111. It's actually it's pretty worthwhile. I mean, I would say that's, it's always going to be a different sort of algorithm tracking, but as long as it's within range of it's using the same baseline, I think this is really worthwhile for this particular type of workout. Now, the second type is, how does it evaluate like more of a steady state monostructural workout? So this was just a sort of zone 2 cardio for me, and just how does it assess, like a baseline where it's all sort of the same. So a lot of it was in that zone 3, which is what I categorize as zone 2. You see the training effect. So this is 1 hour of just straight work, all aerobic, no anaerobic. The aerobic ranking was 3.3, and if we look at the summary data, here we have the aerobic again 3.3, anaerobic basically non-existent, and the training load 133. So how would that compare to Garmin? So training effect 3.0, super in line. Anaerobic, not at all. And then if we go into the stats, we look at the stats, exercise load 78. So Garmin gave it a lower score. Obviously, Garmin's always coming in lower, but aerobic training effect of 3.0 versus 3.3 here, it did give a current workload of 133, but this was right in the beginning when I first got the watch, so maybe it wasn't adjusted. But still, from an aerobic and anaerobic evaluation, it was giving it, I would say, fair scores for the work output. And just for fun, you can see the run that I did as just a longer run, way longer than I've ever gone in a while. Slow pace, 10 and 30 mile. You can see just how it calculates the impact of different segments of the run. It wasn't out and back, so the altitude chart looks fantastic. I like that it showed a gradient distribution, uphill, downhill, flat. That probably actually felt accurate. And cadence, stride, I don't know if those things are right. Training effect, obviously 4.3 and 3.1. I don't know that it's in any way a 3.1, because if you look at the heart rate, it really wasn't near my peak, although towards the end it was, just sort of more so. But either way, really high output there. And then if you look at the training load assigned to it, then you go here at the bottom, training load of 281 and VO2 max of 41, whereas my VO2 max on Garmin and other devices is 46. So definitely low ball VO2 max. All right, looking at just one more classic CrossFit. You have basically lifting section in the beginning, and you have the Metcon and the more intense portions in the back half. This, where the workout was tracked really pretty accurately versus a heart rate monitor. So the Amazfit balance kept up. So the heart rate's accurate, so we can see an assessment of how the training load is evaluated. So the training effect, aerobic 3.2, anaerobic 3.1. So it's still categorizing whenever you hit those higher peak or that more time in zone 4, zone 5, it's categorizing as anaerobic. And then if you go to the Garmin, you have a training effect of aerobic of 3.0, and then not much anaerobic accumulation based on Garmin's sports science. So 3.0 versus 3.2. So I think that's actually pretty, again, healthy alignment with the aerobic training effect. And then you go to the training load that Garmin gave it, exercise load there in the middle, exercise load at 86. So that's the training load assigned to it, which would accumulate in your training load time. Here, training load 130. So you got 130 versus 86 in the middle here. So that is a pretty big discrepancy. So you're going to get higher average training load calculations with the Amazfit balance, but your aerobic training effect will be a little bit more aligned. So all this boils down to what value you're going to get out of the training load recommendations and the recovery time recommendations. So the training load speaks specifically about that first. So it goes through a simple sort of snapshot. That is your accumulation over averages, the 7-day and then the 28-day. Obviously, it had to accumulate my training load in the beginning before it started to normalize. And I would say that's probably fair that I'm in like the moderate to low end of my training load range, although It does look like it's going to take a full 45 to 60 days to fully settle in the acute versus the chronic, because it jacked up my chronic, and I don't think that's accurate at all. I just was doing the same workouts. It just gave me a higher score because I was starting from zero, and that's just something to be aware of with the device. But on the 7 day, it looks like I am on the low end on the Garmin scale. Not pushing it as much volume or as much time or as much intensity. So this feels like it's worthwhile. So now we know it's going to be a higher number than what Garmin might spit out, but it's still going to probably be a training load assigned to each workout relative to the intensity of the workout. It's like not far off, not unreasonable. And so that's where.
All right, so here you can see that on the Garmin it is 21 hours, and on Amazfit Balance 27. And that's probably because if you look at the training effect, it's getting 3.1 and 2.2, and this is given 3.4 and 3.8, low to 119, low to 162. So that would correlate reasonably to a 21-hour rest time in 27 if it had those stats accurate.
All right, so looking at it in summary from a workout analysis and training analysis, training load recommendations, I would probably give it a 7 out of 10. So I would give it a 7 out of 10 that it's doing a great job. I think just like I found with Koros in their review, their anaerobic training effect, never really on point. The aerobic here, though, so the anaerobic's not on point here, it's just always a little bit too high, especially if you're doing higher intensity workouts. But the aerobic training effect, the fact that it has it, and the training load, and the fact that that flows into a recovery time estimate, as well as a training load across your acute training load versus your chronic, all of those have real value, especially in such an affordable watch. I feel like they're doing a much better job now with this watch release at providing value. Sure, it might be higher than Garmin's recommendations for the recovery time or the training load impact or the aerobic training effect impact of the workout, but at the same time, it's giving you a baseline across all those metrics. And as long as it's measuring it the same way, the baseline is of value for your overall to evaluate your training and if you need to push your fitness higher. So 7 out of 10 on the in-depth analysis of how the Amazfit Balance is handling workout analysis, rigor analysis, recovery time recommendations, and training load recommendations. Stay tuned for the full summary. It's the Fit Gear Hunter. Thanks so much for watching.